Welcome once again to the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett are here again today, and today we're joined by our friend Ben Tomlinson. Ben, how are you, friend?
Yeah, I'm doing really well.
Good to see you. What part of the world you calling from today?
I'm in Huddersfield, England, where I'm originally from.
Yeah.
Probably about 200 meters from the house I lived in when I went on my mission.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I suppose.
Yep.
Very good. Well, Ben told us he's been listening to some of our podcasts, so he's familiar with our format. But just a reminder, we'll talk pre-mission and leading up to your call and what your reaction to going to Scotland. Then we'll jump over the mission, talk about life since you've been home, and then we'll go back through the mission. So, Ben, I'll give the floor to you.
All right. So I never really wanted to go on a mission originally. My dad didn't go on one. The only family member I had that did was my uncle, and he'd not enjoyed his. So for years I said I wasn't going. And it was a young men's camp where the whole theme was missions, and it just felt right. So went to my bishop, got everything in place, put my papers in at the same time as my friend Dave Stainton.
That's right, Dave.
Yeah. So he got his mission call on the same day that I got a rejection letter. Apparently, the doctors had refused me because they said I was too overweight to go on a mission.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
Yeah. So they said I had to lose a lot of weight. So I started on that until it was Elder Lund basically told the doctors, stop being idiots and let him go.
Wow. Gosh.
So obviously Dave had been out a few months when I eventually got my call. And I was working with a friend who had served in Scotland on his mission. And he said that he'd been speaking with our bishop and he felt I was going to get called to Scotland, same as Dave. And I told him, if I get called to Scotland, I'm going to kick the side of your car because I don't want the UK. And my parents rang me up while I was at work and said, your call's here, we're coming to meet you, you can open it. So there's me, my parents, and my friend. I open it up, get Scotland, and instantly kick the side of his car.
That's great. Oh, man. So when they told you had to lose weight, what was did they give you a plan of action in order to help you with that? What was their recommendation?
All the church doctors said was lose weight. They didn't even say a target. They just said lose weight and then reapply. So obviously not having anything to aim for didn't help.
Right, yeah. And that, so you would have got your rejection letter. Did Dave leave in October? Is that right?
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember.
I think Dave got his call around May. So I got my rejection then. And then he went out in October, which is when I got my call.
Okay. Man, that's crazy.
I went out in December.
Okay. Well, good. Well, and then you finally made it and hung out with us, which is great. We'll get to that. So
which year, Ben?
December of 2005, right?
Yes.
Okay. So did you go home December of 2007?
Yeah, December of 2007, yeah.
Okay, nice. What have you been up to since December of 2007?
So got home thinking it's Christmas. I'm going to have a nice, easy few weeks. My dad had other plans. Woke me up at 6 o'clock the next morning to tell me he'd got me a job and I was on my way to work. So that was fun. I had a few different jobs. I worked for Amazon and things like that. Went to university, which was probably the biggest waste of time because I haven't done anything with what I learned there.
Yeah.
Met my wife about 8 months after coming home. We got married in 2009.
Nice.
So, got a little 10-year-old daughter, Bella, who is just nuts. And then about 6 years ago, I started my own business in finance and haven't looked back.
Nice. Good for you.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you just stayed around Huddersfield the whole time, just kicking about your same
2 years living on the East Coast over in a place called Bridlington, which is where my wife was living when we met.
Okay.
We had some struggles getting pregnant at first, and in our ward there were a lot of babies.
Oh,
So
man.
she had to get away for a while. It was really doing her head in. So yeah, we went over to Bridlington. I started a bit stuff there, sandwich shop with a friend. And then she got pregnant while we were there, and she'd always said as soon as we had a child, she wanted to move back. So I had to give up that business, and we moved back here.
I mean, that's a good reason, you know. For those of us, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you, Ben. We had trouble getting pregnant as well, and then when we did, you know, all the baby drama went away for a while. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's not to say that it's ever forever gone away, but it's all good. I can understand that completely. It's good. Well, good. Well, take us back now to the mission. You can start MTC and your experience in Preston, or go up to Scotland and start us from there. Whatever you'd like to do.
yeah. So starting the MTC, it was an interesting experience. I didn't really enjoy it. I've never been a fan of role playing and all things like that. Most of what you do in the MTC was role playing.
Yeah.
And I always thought it's a waste of time. Like, you're not going to get the reaction and the response you'll really get, so it doesn't work. But I had a lot of fun with the missionaries there. I was in a room with just two others, Danny Wilkinson and Dustin March.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a pretty interesting group. Obviously, Kilgore, Chambers, Baptista. It was a lot of fun. The lessons were interesting, but yeah, I didn't enjoy the role playing, and yeah, but it's not going to be the same experience for everyone.
No, it's not. That's for sure.
So then, obviously, we went up to Scotland, and I think they pulled us out a day early so that we could do the Pratt's Hill. I think all the other missions stayed in the MTC an extra day.
Oh, wow.
I'm
trying to remember that timeline. Was there a storm at that point in time that was the reason why you guys went up earlier? I don't remember.
I'm not sure. I just remember getting told that if we were going up, it was a day or two earlier than everyone else. They just stuck us on a train and sent us up to Edinburgh.
I guess there's no negotiation at that point. You're like, all right, see ya.
Yeah, you just get told what you're doing, and off you go.
No, that's good.
So, we had the usual tour with the assistants where they lied through the back teeth about everything they could. Some of the stories they came up with were quite fun.
Yes, indeed.
Obviously, being from the UK, I knew a fair bit about Scotland anyway, so I knew some of the stuff they were saying was lies. Some of it I fell for.
You're not the only one.
Fun. Yeah.
Oh man, that's good.
Yeah. So obviously, I started in Cumbernauld.
Okay.
The ugliest little town I have ever seen in my life. And was in a trio at first with Malloy and Stratton.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So Stratton was going home about 2 weeks later to start university, and those two have been together for I think it was about 9 months.
Yeah, they were forever there.
Yeah, and I know from listening to Malloy's podcast, he talks about how much he loves Stratton, but at the time, those two were not getting on. And I think it's just having been together so long, it's got to get quite stressful. Yeah, they had some interesting arguments.
Like an old married couple.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
And I remember Malloy actually mentioned this, that he'd been told to basically help me lose weight. So that they told me that they were going up to Cumbernauld Village to go trapping. So they showed me the map, and it's quite a long way away. And then they tell me that the buses are on strike, so we're walking it the whole way. They had me going through woods and all sorts. I'm thinking, this can't be the best route to get there. And obviously, from listening to my lawyer's podcast and things, you realise they were just avoiding the roads, so I didn't see the buses.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah, they were quite fun.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So it was interesting because they were both going home fairly soon. Stratton after 2 weeks, more after 6. It's Christmas. You got my 20th birthday 4 days after Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So probably the worst time to start a mission in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
They were both quite drunky. You don't do a great deal over the Christmas period. It's all kind of just members with no real investigator work. So it was strange, but fun.
Yeah.
I remember we were teaching a Church of Christ minister. And every time we'd be there, and there'd be him and his kind of second in charge. And his second in charge would always like, let me tell you something about your church. And he'd go on about one of the founding few of our church and why they believe certain things because of the religion they were before or something like that. And it just seemed like a bashing session. But for some reason, Malloy and Stratton loved teaching this guy. This is going nowhere.
Was it Adam Barr?
Can't remember his name.
If he'd been around long enough, because Jack was in Cumbernauld at one point, it could very well be the same person.
Taught a Church of Christ minister, so there can't be that many in Cumbernauld.
Yeah, I remember going he invited us to a baptism at his church. And we sat there and I'm looking around thinking, where is the baptismal font in this place? It's just a large room in what looked like a shopping centre. And they had a table with where they had their sacrament, and they just lifted the top of it, and inside it was a bathtub. And they just baptised them right there in the main section in this bathtub. Like, that's actually quite an interesting way of doing it. Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah. It was nice to see how another church does some things.
Yeah.
Yep.
So after those two were both gone, I got Jason Howard.
Oh man, the legend.
So I'll admit, now I absolutely love the guy. Spent some time around him later on our missions, and great. Living with him, I did not like him. We weren't compatible to spend that much time together. We just seemed to rub each other the wrong way constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't really get on at all for those 3 months we're together.
Oh wow.
He was determined to get me out doing sports every morning, and I didn't want to do that.
What kind of sport? I mean, Jason wasn't. He's a sporty guy, but not overly sporty. Sorry, Jason, if you're listening.
There's some mornings where it's like, just throw an American football and I'll run after it. And that's all. I'm like, okay, I can do that.
I can see Jason doing that.
He's a good guy. There's certain people you can't spend that much time with. You don't fit quite right.
Yeah. I can understand that for sure.
So we ended up closing Cumbernauld. Probably a couple of reasons why. There was a shooting just outside the flat probably 2 weeks before we closed the area.
Whoa.
Some drug dealer got insulted in a pub, so shot someone.
Yikes.
Yeah, it was an interesting area.
Yeah, they call it the concrete jungle don't call it the concrete jungle for nothing, right?
Yeah. In fact, I was reading. I was reading today. It's still listed in the top 10 ugliest town centres in the UK.
So it has gotten better, huh? Oh, goodness.
I was gonna say closest I've ever been to a murder as well in that area. So
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Crazy.
Yeah, it was a sketchy area. It was strange that they had a lovely little building that did not have that long, but everything else around it was just awful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's where I lived before. So apparently where you lived was better than just down the street from the church.
Yeah. Yes, I remember we had a night in the flat where it got to -13 inside the flat.
Oh boy.
Because they used to leave the window open for the vent from the dryer.
Right.
And if they forgot to shut it in the middle of winter, it got cold.
Gosh.
Yeah, I remember waking up to everything just being so cold. It was ridiculous.
Man, might as well have slept outside.
Yeah. But
Goodness.
yeah, there's some great members there. Had a lot of fun. The Foot family. I've seen them quite a few times. Bump into them at the temple nearly every time I go.
Wow.
So it's nice seeing them.
That's cool.
Yeah. So from there, I went up to Bridge of Don up in Aberdeen with Jason Ford. So that was I had 4.5 months up, pretty much over summer, with a flat that was 100 meters from the beach. I absolutely loved Aberdeen. I love the city. The ward, Bridge of Don, was brilliant. So I think that my zone leaders, when I first got there, were Midgley and Lokenberg.
Yeah.
So I knew Midgley from before because I used to hang out with his little sister Megan.
Oh wow.
Because she was dating Dave Stainton before he went on his mission.
Oh wow.
So, yes,
Small world.
Yeah. There were quite a few, like Alistair Martin I knew, Tom Brownlow, quite a few that I'd known beforehand.
Right.
Which in some ways quite helped. And in others, it was strange because I was like my first weekend in the mission field, I was playing football with Dave Stainton. And I kept calling him Dave and getting told off, like, it's Elder Stainton. Yeah, it's going to take some time to get used to that. I've had 20 years of calling him Dave.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, I went up to Bridge of Don, Elder Ford, and as soon as I got there, I could get off the train, and there's him, Bockholt, and McCabe. They were up at Peterhead. So I dumped my bags at the flat and went sand dune jumping. I was like, okay, spend some time having a laugh. So we used to spend quite a lot of time with the Peterhead elders. Probably too much. Quite a few sleepovers. I think there was one sleepover I think you almost caught us. Like you came around to the flat first thing in the morning.
It wouldn't have been me. There's no way I was getting up early to chase you guys down doing crazy stuff. I can tell you that.
They'd seen the car coming around the corner out the window and absolutely legged it.
Oh man, I'm not surprised. It is what it is. You know, can't go back and change it. It is what it is.
So we had a guy there that joined the church. Was it Cliff or Clive? So he was dating a member in the Aberdeen ward and didn't want her to know that he was having the lessons.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He didn't want her to think he was doing it for her.
Yeah.
So I think he just turned up at church one Sunday and said, "Can you teach me?" So,
oh my gosh. I didn't realize that. The Cliff is a Cliff Watt is his last name?
What?
Maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he was dating one of the Waby girls.
Yeah.
Right? I can't remember which of it was the older of the three daughters. But nonetheless, yeah, I remember Cliff very well. I spent plenty of time over at the Waby's house, and so I got to spend time with Cliff. He was great.
Yeah, he was a great guy. And working with Ford was a lot of fun. He is a definite character. He had some stories. I remember he had a picture on his desk of him from early in his mission after being hit with a rock thrown at him by some Neds, and he's just covered in blood. And he had this picture on his desk as a reminder of just to avoid Neds as much as you could.
Jeez Louise. I didn't know Jason had that. That's crazy. Jason, come on the podcast and tell us your stories. We'd love to hear from you.
I'd love to hear from Jason.
I've been in touch with him. We're still working on him, but in time. It sounds like he's got a lot going on.
Yeah. So I don't remember if he was district leader straight away, but he got called as district leader after a while, and we ended up going on exchanges a lot with the Peterhead missionaries, and that was an interesting area.
Oh yeah, we could tell you.
Yeah. I remember, obviously, this is at the time when the World Cup was on.
That's right.
And they had an old lady that was getting baptized, so obviously Ford had to interview her. So she rings up, I don't know if it was Bocott and McCabe or if it was Coforth at that point. I said, why don't they come up, interview me, I'll do food, and you can all watch. It was the final of the World Cup. I'm like, this little 80-year-old lady is letting us all stay at her house and watch the World Cup final. Okay.
Sounds like a good setup.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, she was petrified of water. And I think when they baptized her, she had to go forwards because she was too afraid of going backwards.
I think you're right. I remember that.
Yeah, there's some interesting times. Remember hanging out with you had Nay, who was up there.
Right.
Playing American football a few times. It's
you guys had quite a good district up there for a long time.
Yeah. Well, it was good that everyone seemed to get on. In most districts, there was always kind of one or two missionaries that didn't get on with each other. But that district, everyone just clicked. We're all able to have a laugh, and it makes the work a lot easier when you're enjoying who you're with. And
yeah, exactly. So, how long were you with Jason? I'm trying to remember.
4.5 months.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I was only there the last 6 weeks that you guys were together.
Yeah.
Myself and Stuart Pattenden.
Yep.
So we had fun.
Yeah. It was a great area.
Relative, right?
Yeah. So I know a couple of people have mentioned it. So I had a laptop at that point.
I knew it.
Yeah.
It was DVD player or something else. I couldn't remember what it was.
Yep. So he refused to sleep in the same room with me because, as Toby Lukes mentioned, I snore like a train. So yeah, after a couple of nights, he was done. He's like, "This isn't happening." And we got a laptop, and when we get back on the night, we're like, we'll stick a film on. We had an investigator that copied DVDs to help fund his university. So we used to get copied DVDs off him.
Oh my gosh. Oh boy.
So yeah, it's probably the most fun 4.5 months and quite productive. We still had a fair bit of success, but probably when we were doing the least of what we should. We spent most of our time that we could out of proselyting clothes doing service. If we could not be in a suit, we'd be fine. Spent a lot of time with the Adams.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yep.
Yeah, good family.
Yeah. So I found out recently there's a guy that I work with whose stepson is married to their eldest daughter.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
So it was nice catching up and getting some details about how they're all doing.
That is cool.
Yeah. So I then moved down to Edinburgh. Okay. And I think it's because they knew I had the laptop, because it very quickly became a thing as soon as I got to Edinburgh. So
can I just jump in real quick, Ben, and tell you my insights as a zone leader? When I got up there, the assistants had heard a rumor, and they said, "Hey, can you find this out?" And I'm like, "Why? Like, that's not my prerogative. My job is to lead the zone, to be productive in helping us find people to baptize and build the church." They're like, "We need to find that out." And I said, doesn't make a lot of sense. And so that's why the rumors were swirling in my mind. And I was like, if he does, so what? If he's happy and enjoying himself, I didn't care. I cannot speak for Stuart Eller Pattenden at that point in time because he heard that directive and was very, very engaged in trying to figure that out. I was just like, whatever, who cares? I guess I was just an old hat at that point in time. I only had 6 months of my mission left, and I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry that they dragged you to Edinburgh to squeeze it out of you, it sounds like.
Right. So yeah, I get down there to the Leith area with Cameron MacDonald,
Oh, nice.
who again I think had 6 weeks left.
Yeah, that
So
sounds about right.
they find out about the confirm I have this laptop, and basically mission president said, "Get rid of it. I'm not going to take it off you. You just make the choice. Get rid of it." And we had a few students that were investigators, so I just said, "And if you want to buy a laptop," and we were, "Yep, 150 quid. There you go." It was gone, done.
Wow.
So,
Nice
so,
work.
yeah.
Nice work.
Yeah. So I remember getting to Leith and walking up the stairs to this flat, and Cameron's like, "So what I'm about to show you, you're going to have to learn to do." I'm like, "Okay." He opens the door without unlocking it, sticks his hand through because it's got one of those chains on it, and moves the chain to be able to open the door. And it turns, from what I was told, is the door stuck or they got locked out, and Dave Stainton had to break the door. So he'd run along the corridor at this door and destroyed the lock. And they'd never reported it as broken.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was an interesting flat. I was listening to, was it Cassidy saying about the shower, how it didn't have a shower.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Oh.
so from what I remember, they had one put in, I think, while I was there.
Oh wow.
But it was a crap one. It was one that just ran off the taps of the bath.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think we'd had enough. We had a dishwasher. No other flat I had on had a dishwasher. That was nice.
Wow.
But yeah, the shower was terrible.
So you asked him to put in the shower, but you didn't ask him to fix the locks at the same time. Like that.
No.
There's the
When
disconnect there doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, when I left 4.5 months later, the lock was still broken.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's amazing. Oh goodness.
Yeah. So I had six weeks with Cameron. Spent a lot of time with the, I can't remember what area it was. The next, is it Easter House? No, Easter House is Glasgow. But yeah, the next area over, I think it was Drennan and Wilcoxon.
Oh yeah, nice.
I think their bathroom flooded and it all had to be ripped out. So they ended up moving in with us for a while.
Oh my gosh.
So we had a 4-man flat for maybe about 6 weeks. And obviously you're coming up to Christmas as well again. So it was interesting. Cameron was a lot of fun.
Yeah, good guy.
He really could make me laugh. So
I love it.
that was the time I was having most problems. I had a back injury from a car accident when I was younger, and all the walking was absolutely destroying my back. And he was brilliant at getting it to just crack all the way down. He knew exactly how to get it sorted, so I'd be fine the next day.
What was he doing to help your back? Like walking on your back, or?
Yeah, he did a few different. I think the worst was he used to rub up and down my spine to loosen up the muscles before then trying to crack it. And he's just getting the muscles all loose and the phone rings. So he goes and off to answer the phone. So I just kind of relax, thinking it's going to be 10 minutes. Drennan comes running in and just jumps onto my back. And it was the most painful thing I've ever had. But then all the way down my back, cracked, and it all seemed to be perfectly positioned after that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was just laid there in such agony for about 15, 20 minutes, and then it was fine. And they just thought it was absolutely hilarious seeing Drennan run into the room and just jump on me.
That's kind of a small miracle, that one is. My
Yeah.
gosh.
Golly.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, played quite a few games of pint Jenga.
Oh no.
Yeah. As for missionary work, I think Edinburgh was my hardest ward. Mainly just the sheer number of missionaries there really didn't help.
Yeah.
You get to the point where these are your members. You can't speak to other members because they're not in your area. And if you did, the missionaries would be having a go at you. No one wanted to feed the missionaries because there were just so many. There was one family, I can't remember the name, but they were all mentally challenged. And they would feed all the missionaries except the sisters every Sunday. And it was the worst food I've ever had in my life. I remember that we had uncooked sausages, and then like, we're having rice pudding for pudding, and it was uncooked rice with cold milk poured on it.
Oh man.
So some missionaries could handle it. I managed to eat it and never get ill, but it was just awful. There were some missionaries that you just see them turn green as they're eating it. Yeah, the sisters had managed to find another family that would feed them at the same time, so they always got out of it. Yeah, all the elders got fed by this one family. Oh.
Wow. That would ruin rice pudding for me, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Goodness. So who did you serve with in Leith after Cameron?
After that, I got Devin Fisher.
Love that guy.
Yeah, he was great. The biggest issue with Devin was that he did not want to be in Edinburgh.
Really?
He was furious with the mission president because he'd asked to stay in Dundee for Christmas. He'd got his Christmas all set up with the members he liked, and then right before Christmas, he moves to Edinburgh, and he was furious.
Well, that would have been our last moves too, if it was December too. So
he was done that time. Yeah,
man, that's rough.
But yeah, he was a great guy. He got a piece of metal stuck in his eye. He came to me one morning. He's blinking a lot. It's like, my eye hurts. Can you have a look? So I'm looking at his eyeball, and it's just this little kind of brown ring. I'm like, don't know what that is, but maybe you want to get it checked. And it turned out a piece of metal had just kind of blown into his eye, and the ring was rust. The liquid in his eye was causing the metal to rust.
Oh my gosh.
So they had to obviously pull that out. And we told the mission president, and friend's wife rings up, says, right, come round for dinner. Sees you've had this minor operation. And you could tell on her face the minute we got there that she expected it to be a lot worse than it was. And that she just, it's like, you've lied to me to get a free dinner out of me type of feeling.
Oh boy. I'm sure Sister Frederick forgave you after that. Probably.
Yeah, she was a lovely woman.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. So Edinburgh, like district meetings, you've got so many, I think it was 7 areas. So it's the largest district in the entire mission. And then also you've got the assistants would come in, and the meetings would take so long. It was ridiculous. And it became a kind of tradition that as soon as you're done, you'd go to Pizza Hut for lunch. Obviously, all you can eat buffet. I think there's 4 Pizza Huts in Edinburgh city centre. We got banned from 3 of them just for going and eating too much. But when you've got that many missionaries, they're going to get through a lot of food.
Oh, man. And you were doing that once a week? So, like, each time you got kicked out, you go to the next one, and then get kicked out of the next one. Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was fun. A lot of fun in Edinburgh. Great city. The members, when you could get in, were brilliant. I think they were a little overwhelmed because you could have visits numerous times a week from different missionaries.
Sure.
Wasn't controlled, and it gets a bit much. But I remember there were a couple. Can't remember the names, but I think she was American. He was Chinese, and she had all the missionaries over now and again. In fact, she did a whole Thanksgiving for the entire ward, and yeah, they were a great couple. They fed us a lot.
That's cool.
Fun. So that was while in Edinburgh was the first time I've ever experienced being given a ward list and being told go through it and actually tell people how to have their names removed if they want it.
Wow.
There was a lot of talk about baseball baptisms from I think the 70s and 80s,
Mm-hmm.
and the Edinburgh ward list was like 900 people. Yet you'd get 100, 150 at church. So, like, if they're there, speak to them. If they're not, tell us so we can move them on. And they had all missionaries going around the area just trying to find if these people still lived there and kind of clean up their ward list for them.
Yeah. There were plenty of those throughout the whole mission that had those lists that were easily 4, 5, 6, 700 people. And we're like, why do we only have 80 people at church? Like, the percentages on this just didn't make a lot of sense. And it definitely was that. We had people that we'd run into all the time. Oh, yeah, I'm a member of your church. And you're like, excuse me? Like, I don't even know who you are. But, they just say that, but they're not involved. They're not, or they're familiar with us because of past interactions with missionaries or whatever. But yeah, we had that a lot. I remember.
Yeah. So it surprised me a bit because the back end of my time in Edinburgh became a lot more pushing for people to be baptized a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was one where they literally met this person on the bus on the way to church, invited him to church, and he came with them. They taught him the lessons after church and baptized him that evening.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm like, how is that right? I'm fairly sure isn't there a rule that's supposed to attend church at least 2 or 3 times?
3 weeks, yeah.
Yep. And it became a big push to invite them to be baptized straight away and let's get them through as quick as possible. And
man,
like, aren't we just doing exactly what they did with the baseball baptisms? None of them are going to come back and stay. But it was interesting.
That's tough.
It's also the first time I ever experienced a bishop and a mission president arguing over a baptism.
Wow.
There was a young girl, Mary something, who wanted to be baptised but didn't want to get her mum's permission. Now, technically in Scotland, she was 16, she didn't need it. But the bishop basically pushed, look, you need to speak to her, or you don't want to ruin your family relationship. Whereas the missionaries were like, no, she's ready, she's allowed, let's do it. And I think eventually she decided not to until she did speak to her mum. And it was only a few months later she got the courage up and her mum said fine and even came to the baptism.
Oh, wow.
But I know there was a lot of hard feelings with the bishop and the mission president for a while over that one.
It's interesting.
Unfortunately, sometimes these things happen. People aren't going to agree on everything.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. How many times did you go see less actives that were less active because they didn't agree with someone?
More often than not.
All the time.
Like I think you said in a previous podcast, half the time that person isn't even there in the ward anymore, might not even be alive, but they're not at church because of a disagreement they had with some complete stranger years ago.
Right. Yeah, often it had nothing to do with the doctrine being taught. More often than not, it was maybe someone's interpretation of the doctrine or their their thoughts on the matter, and someone says one thing that doesn't mesh with another, and people just drift apart.
Yeah.
So pretty crazy.
Yeah. Happened a lot, but every now and again you get them to agree to come back, which is always nice.
And then they'd ask you if that person that had offended them was still there, and you'd say, maybe, I don't know.
I don't know the name. Yeah. Never heard of them. I've been here months, so I'm guessing not.
Come and tell us one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
That's right.
Yeah, so obviously I had my second Christmas there. Obviously, President Frederick had not been out that long, and it was an interesting time. That's probably just as Hammer Time was starting.
Hmm.
It was a little. So that's when the idea came along. Probably back end of my time in Edinburgh.
Wow.
So I then moved to Greenock with Toby Lukes.
Yeah.
And was covering 2 wards. We were doing alternate weeks at Greenock and Beath,
Oh, wow.
which neither ward was happy with. There was a lot of hard feelings from Greenock that were only there half the time. Beath were, you're only here half the time. Why aren't we good enough for full time? Because they've been closed for a while for missionaries. And it became apparent fairly soon that the plan was to close Greenock and move us to Beath, which, as Toby said in his podcast, he didn't like that idea, and he fought against it as much as he could.
Right.
So we ended up. They made us move the flats, so we moved to a place called Largs, which is kind of halfway between the two. Lovely little seaside village. But yeah, he fought against closing Greenock because they definitely needed the help. But all our investigators that were teaching were in Greenock. There was nothing going on in Beath.
Hmm.
But yeah, interesting set of wards. I think it was the first Sunday we were there. I think Toby actually spoke about this. We went to visit a couple called the Heseltines. Tom and Sue Heseltine. They'd not been at church for a while because Tom was too unwell to leave the house. So we knock on the door, and Sue opens the door. She's like, "Hi, Elder Lukes. Hi, Elder Tomlinson. Come in. I've just been speaking to your grandparents." I'm like, "What?" And it turns out that back in the 50s, I think it would have been, they ran the youth program in England, and my grandparents met through them.
Wow.
So that they were really good friends with my grandparents.
That's cool.
So, yeah, they had some stories. Unfortunately, Tom died while I was there, but it meant my grandparents came up for the funeral.
Yeah.
Which was handy because I got a few things I collected over the time that I didn't like lugging around, so they could take them home for me. All the things you get given or end up buying in gift shops and random things.
Right. Very true.
Yeah, so there was a couple out on Dune that we used to go visit every week, and they one P day they said, "Why don't you come over and we'll take you around all the waterfalls and take you around Dune and all the nice areas." So we went round, got absolutely soaked, going to all these waterfalls to find out that the ferry had been cancelled because of bad weather.
Oh, no.
So the options were either we sleep on their living room floor, soaking wet, or they drive us home, which meant going all the way up through Oban, back down the other side into Glasgow, and then across to Greenock.
Wow.
So they drove, and as we're going along the coast, the waves were coming over the top of the car. Probably one of the scariest car journeys I've ever been in.
Oh, my gosh.
And the only one insured to drive was the wife. I can't remember if the husband drove or not, but yeah, she drove, and I'm thinking one of these ways could quite easily take this car out. Fortunately, nothing happened, and they even got home safe after that. Definitely an experience I'll never forget.
Wow.
Yes, some fun.
Crazy.
Yeah. So obviously, Toby spoke about this being probably the worst part of his sleep time, and yeah, he was a mess. He did not sleep for days on end, and it was hard seeing him struggle like that because he really is a great guy. I absolutely loved being around with Toby.
Right.
Obviously, it's not easy to watch anyone struggle, and sleep can really affect you in so many ways. And just watching him try and push on, even though you could see he just wanted to sleep. And he really taught me a lot on just getting out there and getting on with it no matter what.
Yeah, I bet.
I've had experiences since, like at home. I worked with my brother for a while, and if he woke up not feeling well, he'd call in sick. But by maybe 10 o'clock, he'd be fine. Like, you should have just got on with it and got to work. And that's the attitude I have after watching the way Toby was.
Yeah.
Get on with it and make the most of it.
Wow.
He was a brilliant guy. I absolutely loved serving with him.
Yeah. We enjoyed chatting with him too.
Yeah. I don't know if I remember, but he mentioned the Schmidts. I think it was Mark and Mundeep.
Mhm.
And they both less active. I think at one point they weren't together. They'd had a bit of a split, and we're around at Mark's house, and he just put a pint of vodka in front of Toby, and said, "Look, that'll help you sleep if you want it." And I'm just sat there watching him, thinking, could he go for it? And he got up and walked out. I'm like, good.
Wow.
It was one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had. Just watching this less active member offering a missionary a pint of vodka.
Oh. That would be quite an experience. Never happened, at least to me. So, goodness.
Yeah. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was the first area where I had a car, and this car had been used probably by about 3 or 4 Americans beforehand to learn how to drive manual. One of them being a sister missionary who had curbed it a few times, so this car was a wreck. It was shocking. But yeah, so you'd be driving around thinking this thing's going to fall apart.
Oh man.
But yeah, it was fun. Greenock. I know Toby said about how wet it was, and from my memory, I don't remember many days where it wasn't absolutely chucking it down. It was such a wet place, but a lovely place at the same time.
Yep.
Getting out to some of the kind of further afield areas, it was a lot of fun. A lot of walking because obviously your mile limit got destroyed in some of those areas. You're halfway through the month and you've already hit your limit. You're like, right, we're walking.
Gosh, that was a challenge for sure.
Yeah. It was good. So then I went from there to Livingston with Danny Wilkinson.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, he obviously we'd been together in the NTC. He was very intense. I don't know if you've had this experience, but I found with people that join the church and go on missions quite quick, they do tend to be fairly intense people because others just don't go. They think, oh, it's too soon.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd only been a member maybe 18 months when he went on his mission.
Yeah.
And he was intense, but he worked hard. He was a lot of fun at the same time. Also, great accent being from Liverpool.
That's right. We've been in touch with Danny, and he will come on the podcast probably early in the next year. So you'll get to hear that accent again.
Yeah, that'll be good. He's, literally, I could be at his house in probably just over an hour, but I never get a chance to talk to him. Or
Yeah.
it's not far to Liverpool from where I am. I'll have to try and catch up on Facebook with him.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love that.
So we had quite a lot of success in Livingston. We're teaching a lady, Tracy Robertson, who she got baptised. Unfortunately, doesn't go anymore. Her daughter ended up getting baptised not long after I moved out of the area. There was Hazel and Mark Deans. So there was a family there, the Mitchells, who's their best friends, who lived a couple of houses down. Their eldest daughter was friends with Mark, and that's how we met them, and Hazel, his mum, and his dad, Dixie. And we ended up spending a lot of time teaching them. Hazel and Mark both joined, Dixie never did. And I've kept in touch with Hazel quite a lot. Unfortunately, Dixie passed away a few years back. I was able to go up for the funeral.
Wow.
And but yeah, it's some really great people in Livingston. I think it was my next companion. I think it would be with Lynch. We had a young girl who was wanting to get baptised. So it was the mission president, the ward mission leader's granddaughter. So it was the ward mission leader, a guy called Keith, and his wife Rose. And there's their youngest granddaughter who was just turned 8. And she talked about wanting to be baptised, but obviously her mum wasn't a member, her dad wasn't interested at all. And we were trying for quite a while to get permission to baptise her. And we got one of these calls from, I think it was the zone leaders, where it was, oh, you need to show more faith. So why don't you go and fill the baptismal font and then go and teach her and say, right, can we baptise right now? So like, okay, we'll give that a try. So we went and turned the baptismal font on, went over to the ward mission leader's house, taught his granddaughter again. So right, will you get baptised today? She was up for it. The mum said she didn't mind, but we had to get the dad's permission. And he was not having any of it. He was like, no, not happening. So we walked out of there absolutely deflated. Like, the zone leaders haven't helped us here. This hasn't worked. And we're on the phone to the zone leaders later that day, just telling them, look, the dad won't go for it. And it was right as, I think it had been Lynch, was on the phone to them saying, yeah, shit, it hasn't happened. The dad said no. And I just clicked that we'd not turned the font off. So we just legged it out of the flat, drove as fast as we could to the church, and got there just as the font was starting to overflow into the bathrooms.
Oh my gosh.
And we're like, so lucky that probably maybe 10 minutes later, it had been all over the carpets and everything. And
So there was a miracle that day.
yeah, there definitely was a miracle that day. The ward would not have liked us if they'd come in the next day and the place was flooded.
Oh man. Wow.
Yeah, I absolutely love Livingston. The ward was great. The members, we had a family. I can't remember the Halls. He was a computer guy for the oil rigs. So he just got a call saying, we've got an issue, we're sending a helicopter for you now, come and fix it.
Wow.
And so we'd be going over for dinner and she'd ring up saying, he's just got called, so you're going to have to sit in the garden and have your dinner appointment because you can't come in, things like that. But yeah, they were great. They really did push the wall to work with us so much more than a lot of people had done. Obviously, it was 4 missionaries there because you had Bathgate. So we had Smith. I can't remember the other missionary that was there at the time. Short, dark-haired American, but I can't remember his name. But we used to have dinner appointments where all four were together. That's an old lady called Sister Ebbs that would feed all four of us. And so you'd have a lot of fun with the members, and it was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been back to Livingston quite a few times since. My wife absolutely loves it there. She's we tend to go and see Keith and Rose every time we're there, and Hazel.
Nice.
It's
That's
nice
really
that
cool.
we're able to stay in touch with people. It's one of the things that afterwards I was kind of glad that I'd stayed in the UK, because obviously for yourselves to go back is quite a big thing. For me, I can jump in my car and be there in 4 hours.
Yeah, we're jealous of that for sure.
Big time.
So I remember while I was in Livingston, I ended up in hospital for a night. I was helping the mission leader's daughter had a flat tire and didn't know how to change the tire. So I changed it for her. It was one of these where it goes in a little kind of cradle underneath the car.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to put the spare one back underneath, and I knocked the jack with my arm, and it dropped, and the car came down and smacked me on the head.
Oh my
So the car hits
gosh.
the front, the back of my head hits the concrete. So I ended up at A&E, and I'm looking at that, and they're like, "You've got concussion. We're quite surprised you haven't got a skull fracture."
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was quite lucky. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. And then, so after that, I moved to Falkirk with Alex O'Donoghue.
Yeah.
And our first weekend, I had to go back to Livingston to see for a follow-up with the doctors just to check there was nothing. Because it had been probably a couple of weeks before that I'd had the head injury. So I'd gone over there Saturday morning. I'm like, why don't we stay and play football? Because we used to play football every Saturday in Livingston with members, investigators. And so we stayed, we played football. We're on the train back to Falkirk when I got a call from the assistant saying, "So why are you out playing football in Livingston?" I'm like, all right, someone's grassed us in. I kind of get it. So I explained to them, and like, you know what, actually, that's okay. You were in the area originally for a legitimate reason. You should probably have just gone home afterwards and not stayed for the football, but we'll let this one slide.
That phrase always makes me a little bit iffy. It's like, we'll let this slide. What are they going to do? Like, go back in time and change it? You know, the word is, it's okay, carry on.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Sorry.
So
Tangent there.
so Falkirk was an interesting place. There was a member who their son accused me of biting him.
Oh boy.
So she kicked us out of the house before a dinner appointment because her little boy had said I'd bitten him. So I spoke to her on the Sunday afterwards and look, I'm sorry I've done anything to upset your kid, but I didn't bite him. She's like, I know, I've spoken to him since. He doesn't like you. So he just did what he could to get you out of there. Like, okay.
Messed up little kid.
Yeah. So
man.
if you don't like someone, just get rid of them.
Fair.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So this would have been peak hammer time while I was in Falkirk. So I know you've had a lot of people with a lot of different opinions on hammer time.
Yeah.
Some of it I didn't mind. I get trying to be more righteous and more following the rules. It was the way they went about it. Because I remember saying, I think it was to Coford. I basically called him Satan because they were his theory, his opinion was that we're going to force you to do the right thing. Like,
All right.
this is exactly what they talk about in the plan of salvation. That is what Luther wanted, to force everyone to do the right thing. And that is how I saw it. That's what.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. So,
Man.
some of them weren't as bad as others, but some of the zone leaders were atrocious for the way they were.
Mhm.
So I got moved out of Falkirk. And I don't know, I think Elder Money thought he was the one getting moved because I placed him in Motherwell.
Okay.
But it was basically because the zone leaders had done a flat inspection while we weren't there, found that I had some magazines and a mobile phone that I shouldn't have had, and took them off to the mission president. But the bit that ticked me off the most is they took my journal and read it and told the mission president that I should read about some of the things I'd written about the leadership.
Oh my gosh. That's messed up big time.
Yeah. So fortunately, I got a call from the assistants telling me I was being moved. I was like, "You're on the train today." And then the mission president comes on the phone and says, "I have your journal. This is what I've been told. I have not opened it. That is not my place." He's like, "I will bring it and give it to you at the next interviews."
Man. That's
Crazy.
That's way beyond what we've heard from other people about their experience with Hammer Time. My goodness.
Yeah, there was some interesting times. So I can't remember who the zone leaders were at that time. I think it was Coford and someone else. Which at the beginning of Coford's mission, I absolutely loved him because he's serving in Petehead while I was in Bridge Dom.
Right.
And he's such a laugh. And then by the end, that just kind of ruined it for me. I just look at it as sometimes a bit of power goes to people's heads and they're not themselves.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure he's not like that afterwards. I'm sure he came off his mission and hasn't been forcing everyone to do what he thinks is right ever since. Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of issues then with Hammer Time. So I got moved to Motherwell with Jonathan Shenton.
50 Cent.
Yep. He is a funny guy. He was absolutely brilliant. So Motherwell, an interesting wars. Some members were great, would really work with you. Others didn't want to even talk to you. The bishop was, "I will work with you on these days. The other days you do not call me. They're my days." And even if we had an emergency, we could not call him on those days. Okay.
Interesting.
Goodness.
I've not met a bishop before or since that works that way, but if it works for him, okay.
That's right. Goodness.
Yeah. So I remember they were doing a lot of building work right across the street from the flat. And for weeks on end, they had this crane that would just drop a metal plate onto the ground. And you'd be sat there just hearing this thud constantly, like in the morning, because they'd start fairly early. And it used to drive me nuts. I was like, I wasn't great throughout my mission at studying in the morning. I couldn't concentrate, but that just made it so much worse.
Yeah,
And obviously, I've got,
Sure.
I think it was my last 8 weeks, and Shenton said I was drunky. Yeah. I think I started being drunky about halfway through my mission. I was like, I'm on the downhill, I'm done. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun in Motherwell. We taught quite a few people, had a few get baptised. And a family called the Gallaghers. It was a mum and son and daughter, I think. So they got baptised. And what really got me was after our mission, I went back up for New Year's. So I finished on the 4th of December, had Christmas, and then was back in Scotland over New Year's and stayed at the Gallagher's house. Spent a couple of nights there, a couple of nights some other places. And when I got home, my bishop pulled me aside and said he'd had a call saying that I had slept with their 16-year-old daughter.
Oh my gosh.
And no one, he wouldn't tell me who'd said it. I spoke to the gallows and nope. So someone had just started a rumour that had very quickly got home. And yeah, that really ticked me off.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of missionaries, especially in leadership, didn't particularly like me. And I think it's probably one of those that started the rumour. What's the point?
Oh boy.
But,
You had an uphill battle, it sounds like, most of your mission, Ben. Sorry.
It taught me a lot. No matter what happens, I learned a lot from it. And even the ones that really, like, if I bumped into Coford in the street now, I'd give him a hug, tell him I love him.
Yeah.
No matter how much he annoyed me in that last part of my mission, he's still a great guy.
Right.
That's part of what we found with being 15 to 20 years out. Time heals a lot of things.
Yeah. It heals a lot. You learn, you see other perspectives on things, and a lot of things change with the time.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed my entire mission. It was a lot of fun. Met some great people.
Yeah.
Probably should have worked a fair bit harder for most of it. But you can't go back and change things now.
True for most of us.
It's very true.
I remember having an interview with President Vreens not long before he finished. And he said I needed to get out and work harder or he was going to kick me up the butt. And he looked at his feet and said, I've got size 13 feet. You don't want that. I'm like, yeah, that's going to hurt.
Oh, man. Classic President Brains right there.
Yeah. He was a great guy. I absolutely loved the Vreens and the Fredericks. They were great. I learned a lot from them.
Yeah.
And I remember being sat in President Frederick's office and he was talking to me about, obviously, that we'd have the laptop, he's been caught with a phone. And he's like, do you want to go home? He's like, I can get you a train ticket right now and have you home today. Is that what you want? I'm like, no. I'm out of here because I should be. I want to get on with it. So he's like, right, go and get on with it. And you learn a lot from those experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I know with Shenton, we obviously talked about me crashing the car.
Right.
So obviously, he did get it slightly wrong. I didn't pull out on someone that time. I pulled out on someone in the morning, someone was overtaking me, and I went to overtake the car in front, and they'd managed to stop before hitting me. And then later in the day, I'm overtaking a row of cars that were stuck behind a tractor, and one of them pulled out in front of me, and I didn't stop in time. I went to the back of him. So obviously, exactly what I'd done maybe 4 hours earlier. And obviously, we get this courtesy car, and we tell the story of I'm the only one that can drive it. It was a 2.2 litre Vectra. It was fast. No mile limit because it's not a mission car.
Right.
So we took advantage of that. We drove around a lot. I remember. I think he'd been told he was training on moves calls when I was going home. And then the next day, I persuaded him to go to Livingston so I could see a few of the people I'd met there. And we got seen by the missionaries in Livingston, who told the mission president. So that evening, we get the phone call, and he was told, "You're not training this time." with what's happened, you can't train. And then he comes on to me, he's like, if you weren't already going home in a day, I'd be sending you home. And I sat there afterwards thinking, it doesn't seem like that bad of a thing just going over, because it was the next area, but it's a different zone. I'm like, but if you're following the rules, it is quite a big thing we've done wrong. And I felt really bad for Jonathan for obviously not training that time. Fortunately, 6 weeks later, he got the opportunity to train.
Right.
Unfortunately, I didn't ruin that opportunity completely for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Jonathan was your last companion of your mission?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I remember I came back up in the March the next year and spent some time with him when he was serving once again with Elder Money.
Okay.
So obviously me and Elder Money had always got on whenever we were around each other. He was a very funny guy. And obviously I know a lot of people had issues with him, especially leadership again.
Mm-hmm.
And I often kind of thought, I'm probably up there with him for, if they made a list of missionaries leaders didn't like, I'm probably on there with Ryan.
Oh.
But he came over and stayed at my house where I was living with my parents. And it was while I was dating my wife. And I was going to go over to Burlington to see her and said, do you want to come? He's like, no, I'm going to stay, because there was a dance on in Leeds, which is the next area up from where I live.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay if I stay here? So my parents were like, yeah, you can crash here. And my mum always tells me the story that the next morning at breakfast, he's talking about this girl that he'd met and how she was wonderful. He loved her. She was the one. And he did marry her.
Really?
They got married. She moved over there. And from what I gather from Facebook, it hasn't worked out, unfortunately for him. But
Right.
yeah, he met his wife at a dance while staying at my house.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a fun guy. He was a lot of fun. He's definitely one I'd love to hear from. He will have some stories.
I have been in touch with him, and so we'll work on it. I'm not sure timeline wise, but
Yeah,
I am in contact with Ryan for sure.
yeah. It's great to catch up and hear some of the stories.
Yeah.
Especially the past couple of days, I've listened to Toby's and Shenton's. Yeah,
That's
definitely
good.
nice hearing their stories.
I love it. Well, that's a good
Definitely,
segue to ask you. You know, we've interviewed a handful of the people that you served with, and others beyond that you've mentioned. Is there anyone in particular that you wanted to call out, shout out, tell them to get on the podcast and come and tell their stories?
Yeah, so obviously it'd be great to hear from like Dave and Dave Stainton, and I know you're trying to get in touch with Cameron.
I have gotten in touch with Cameron. So he's one that I'm working on. I have been in touch with Dave Staten. I've been giving him grief because he keeps telling me no. So maybe you need to poke him a little bit, Ben, and tell him.
Yeah, I've not seen him in a long time. I have to get on Facebook, and because he moved over to China and then was traveling a lot. So
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like I've had conversations with him via Facebook Messenger. So
yeah,
maybe just that nudge from Ben Tomo will be able to get us where we need to.
yeah. There's one more that I never served around. He actually finished before me, but my bishop served in Scotland, and he
Really?
finished January 2005.
Who's
Kofi
that?
Asariado.
Oh yeah.
Kofi.
Yeah, so he's my bishop, but he never really talked. I've tried getting him talked about his mission, and he always says he can't remember much.
He keeps rescheduling on us, so
yeah,
give him a nudge.
he is a very busy guy. He's a funny guy. He's a great bishop.
Tell him we were asking about him.
Yeah, that's a good reminder because he told me the last time I reached out to him, he said, reach out into September and September's over. So I'll reach out to him and make sure that I'll tell him, hey, we talked to Ben Tomlinson today. He said you need to come on the podcast. When can we get you scheduled? And we'll work on it.
Yeah, definitely get him on.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, Ben, thank you again for taking time to come on and share your experience. We really have enjoyed listening. Me personally, I enjoyed you just kind of ironing out some of the details that everybody floated around everybody and tried to figure out the mystery of Ben Tomlinson, because I always enjoyed being around you. I can't say that you are an overly eccentric person, like very out. You're a little bit more sheltered, and that's okay. Yep. But I enjoyed being around you. So thanks for taking time just to come on and share. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, brother. Well, we love you. Thank you for being our brother in Scotland, and we will certainly talk more in the future. All right.
Yep. Looking forward to it. Love you too.
All right, brother. Cheerio then. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.